Popsy by Stephen King, narrated by Rico Mercer. Sheridan was cruising slowly down the length of the shopping mall when he saw the little kid push out through the main doors under the lighted sign which read Cousin Town. It was a boy child, perhaps a big 3 and surely no more than 5. On his face was an expression to which Sheridan had become exquisitely attuned. He was trying not to cry, but soon would. Sheridan paused for a moment, feeling the familiar soft wave of self-disgust, though every time he took a child, that feeling grew a little less urgent. The first time, he hadn't slept for a week. He kept thinking about that big, greasy Turk who called himself Mr. Wizard, kept wondering what he did with the children. "They go on a boat ride, Mr. Sheridan," the Turk told him. "Only it came out, they go on a boat ride, Mr. Sheridan." The Turk smiled, "And if you know what's good for you, you won't ask any more about it." That smile said, and it said it loud and clear, without an accent. Sheridan hadn't asked any more, but that didn't mean he hadn't kept wondering. Especially afterward, tossing and turning, wishing he had the whole thing to do over again, so he could turn it around, so he could walk away from temptation. The second time had been almost as bad, the third time a little less, and by the fourth time he had almost stopped wondering about what might be at the end of it for these little kids. Sheridan pulled his van into one of the handicapped parking spaces right in front of the mall. He had one of the special license plates the state gave to those with disabilities. That plate was worth its weight in gold, because it kept any mall security cop from getting suspicious, and those spaces were so convenient and almost always empty. He got out and walked toward the kid, who was looking around with increasing panic. Yes, Sheridan thought, he was 5 all right, maybe even 6, just very frail. In the harsh fluorescent glare thrown through the glass doors, the boy looked parchment white, not just scared, but perhaps physically ill. Sheridan reckoned it was just big fear. However, Sheridan usually recognized that look when he saw it, because he'd seen a lot of big fear in his own mirror over the last year and a half or so. The kid looked up hopefully at the people passing around him, people going into the mall, eager to buy, coming out laden with packages. The kid, dressed in tough-skin jeans and a Pittsburgh Penguins t-shirt, looked for help, looked for someone to look at him and see something was wrong, looked for someone to ask the right question. "You get separated from your dad, son?" "Here I am," Sheridan thought, approaching. "I'll be your friend." He had almost reached the kid when he saw a mall rent-a-cop ambling slowly toward the doors. He was reaching in his pocket, probably for a pack of cigarettes. He would come out, see the boy, and there would go Sheridan's sure thing. Shit, he thought, but at least he wouldn't be seen talking to the kid when the cop came out. That would have been worse. Sheridan drew back a little and made a business of feeling in his own pockets, as if to make sure he still had his keys. His glance flicked from the boy to the security cop and back to the boy. The boy had started to cry, not all-out bawling, not yet, but great big tears that looked pinkish in the reflected glow of the red Cousin Town sign as they tracked down his smooth cheeks. The girl in the information booth flagged down the cop and said something to him. She was pretty, dark-haired, about 25. As the cop leaned on his elbow, smiling at her, Sheridan thought they looked like the cigarette ads you saw on the back of magazines. They were making chit-chat. What you doing after work? You want to go and get a drink at that new place, and blah, blah, blah. Now she was also batting her eyes at him. How cute. Sheridan abruptly decided to take the chance. The kid's chest was hitching, and as soon as he started to bawl out loud, someone would notice him. Sheridan didn't like moving in with the cop less than 60 feet away, but if he didn't cover his markers at Mr. Reggie's within the next 24 hours, he thought a couple of very large, angry men would pay him a visit. He walked up to the kid. He bent over the little boy, hands on his legs just above the knees, and the boy turned his pale, scared face up to Sheridan's. His eyes were as green as emeralds, their colour accentuated by the light-reflecting tears that washed them. "You get separated from your dad, son?" Sheridan asked. "My Popsy," the kid said, wiping his eyes. I can't find my Popsy." Sheridan put a comforting arm around the boy's shoulders and drew him in a little to the right, in the direction of the van. Then he looked back inside. The rent-a-cop had his face right down next to the information girl's now. At this point, There could be a stick-up going on at the bank and the cop wouldn't notice a thing. This was starting to look like a cinch. "I want my Popsy," the boy wept. "Sure you do, of course you do," Sheridan said. "And we're gonna find him, don't you worry." He drew him in a little more to the right. The boy looked up at him, suddenly hopeful. Can you, mister?" "Sure," Sheridan said and grinned. "Finding lost Popsies? Well, you might say it's a kind of a specialty of mine." "It is?" The kid actually smiled a little. "It sure is," Sheridan said. "What was your Popsy wearing, son?" "He was wearing his suit," the boy said. "He almost always wears his suit. I only saw him once in jeans." "I bet it was a black suit," Sheridan said. The boy's eyes lit up. "You saw him? Where?" He started eagerly back toward the doors, tears forgotten, and Sheridan had to restrain himself from grabbing the pale-faced little brat right then and there. That type of thing was no good. Couldn't cause a scene. Couldn't do anything people would remember later. Had to get him in the van. The van had sun filter glass everywhere except in the windshield. He touched the boy on the arm. "I didn't see him inside, son. I saw him right over there." He pointed across the huge parking lot where the double yellow arches of McDonald's stood. "Why would Popsy go over there?" the boy asked, as if Sheridan had gone utterly mad. "I don't know," Sheridan said. His mind was working fast. Popsy, not Dad or Daddy, but Popsy. The kid had corrected him on it. Maybe Popsy meant Granddad, Sheridan decided. "I'm pretty sure that was him. Older guy in a black suit, white hair, green tie." "Popsy had his blue tie on," the boy said. "He knows I like it the best." "Yeah, it could have been blue," Sheridan said. "Under these lights, who can tell? Come on, hop in the van. I'll run you over there to him." "Are you sure it was Popsy? Because I don't know why I'd go to a place where they—" Sheridan shrugged. "Look, kid, if you're sure that wasn't him, maybe you better look for him on your own." And he started away, heading back toward the van. The kid wasn't biting. He thought about going back, trying again, but it had already gone on too long. You kept observable contact to a minimum, or you were asking for 20 years in Hamilton Bay. He better go on to another mall. "Wait, mister!" It was the kid, with panic in his voice. There was the light thud of running sneakers. "Wait up! I told him I was thirsty. He must have thought he had to go way over there to get me a drink. Wait!" Sheridan turned around, smiling. "I wasn't really going to leave you anyway, son." He led the boy to the van. He opened the door and smiled at the kid, who looked up at him doubtfully, his green eyes swimming in that pallid little face. "Step into my parlor, little buddy," Sheridan said, and produced a grin which looked almost entirely natural. It was really sort of creepy how good he'd gotten at this. The kid did, and although he didn't know it, he belonged to Briggs Sheridan the minute the passenger door swung shut. There was only one problem in his life. It wasn't sexy women, and it wasn't booze. Sheridan's problem, his fatal flaw you might even say, was cards. Any kind of cards, as long as it was the kind of game where wagers were allowed. He had lost jobs, credit cards, the home his mother had left him. He had never, at least so far, been in jail. But the first time he got in trouble with Mr. Reggie, he thought jail would be a rescuer by comparison. He'd gone a little crazy that night. It was better, he had found, when you lost right away. When you lost right away, you got discouraged, went home. When you won a little bit at first, you chased. Sheridan had chased that night and had ended up owing $17,000. He could hardly believe it. He kept telling himself in the car on the way home that he owed Mr. Reggie not 700, not 7,000, but 17,000. Every time he tried to think about it, he giggled and turned up the volume on the radio. But he wasn't giggling the next night when the two large men, the ones who could make his arms bend in all sorts of new and interesting ways if he didn't pay up, brought him into Mr. Reggie's office. "I'll pay," Sheridan began babbling. "I'll pay. Listen, it's no problem. Couple of days. A week at the most." "You bore me, Sheridan," Mr. Reggie said. "If I give you a week, don't you think I know what you'll do? You'll tap a friend for a couple of $100 if you got a friend left to tap. If you can't find a friend, you'll hit a liquor store, if you got the guts. I doubt if you do, but anything is possible." Mr. Reggie leaned forward, propped his chin on his hands, and smiled. He smelled of Ted Lapidus cologne. "And if you do come up with $200, what will you do with it?" "Give it to you," Sheridan had babbled. By then, he was very close to tears. "I'll give it to you, right away." "No, you won't," Mr. Reggie said. "You'll take it to the truck and try to make it grow.
What you'll give me is a bunch of shitty excuses. You're in over your head this time, my friend. Way over your head.
Sheridan could hold back the tears no longer. He began to blubber.
These guys could put you in the hospital for a long time, Mr. Reggie said. You would have a tube in each arm and another one coming out your nose.
Sheridan began to blubber louder.
I'll give you this much,
Mr. Reggie said, and pushed a folder sheet of paper across his desk to Sheridan.
You might get along with this guy. He calls himself Mr. Wizard. Now get out of here. I'm gonna have you back in here in a week, though. And I'll have your markers on this desk, or I'm gonna have my friends tune up on you.
The Turk's real name was hidden on a folded sheet of paper. Sheridan went to see him, and heard about the kids and the Botchwards. Mr. Wizard also named a figure, which was a fairish bit larger than the markers Mr. Reggie was holding. That was when Sheridan started cruising the malls. He pulled out of the Cousintown Mall's main parking lot, then drove across the road and into the McDonald's in lane. The kid was sitting all the way forward on the passenger seat, hands on his knees, eyes agonizingly alert. Sheridan drove toward the building, swung wide to avoid the drive-through lane, and kept on going.
Why are you going around the back? The kid asked. You have to go around the back to the other doors, Sheridan said. Keep your shirt on, kid. I think I saw him in there.
Sublime relief washed over the kid's face, and for a moment Sheridan felt sorry for him. Hell, he wasn't a monster, but his markers had gone a little deeper each time, and Mr. Reggie had no compunctions at all about letting him hang himself. It wasn't 17,000 this time. This time, it was 35 grand. He stopped in the back by the trash compactor. Nobody was parked back here. Good. There was an elasticized pouch on the side of the door for maps and things. Sheridan reached into it with his left hand and brought out a pair of blued steel handcuffs. The loop jaws were open.
Why are we stopping here, mister?
The kid asked. The fear was back in his voice, but the quality of it had changed. He had suddenly realized that maybe getting separated from good old Popsy in the busy mall wasn't the worst thing that could happen to him after all.
We're not really,
Sheridan said easily. He had learned the second time he'd done this that you didn't want to estimate even a 6-year-old. The second kid had kicked him in the balls and damn near gone away.
I just remembered I forgot to put my glasses on when I started driving. They're in that glasses case on the floor there. They slid over to your side. Hand them to me, would you?
The kid bent over to get the glasses case, which was empty. Sheridan leaned over and snapped one of the cuffs on the kid's reaching hand. And then the trouble started. Thank you all for watching. This was part 1 of Popsy by Stephen King. This is definitely one of my favorite Stephen King short stories. Although I'd have to say my favorite is definitely The Man in the Black Suit, which, while I will probably get around to narrating that story at some point, I won't be working on it yet since there are other projects I'm working on that I want to get out of the way first before covering that one, since it's a pretty beefy short story and I'm going to definitely have to do multiple parts just like with this one. Now, as you can see, this is part 1 of Popsy, and I should hopefully have part 2 out by around next week. And at some point, I'll probably make a supercut with both parts. And I hope you've all been enjoying the short videos. It's just been my way of providing a little bit of entertainment for you and allowing me to do just a kind of bit of practice with my voice acting. Now, at some point in the future, I may even make a compilation of these shorts, but honestly, that's just kind of up in the air. I'd like to thank everyone that's subscribed and liked my videos thus far. I'm really appreciating the support, and I'll try to keep improving, and I'm glad that you guys really enjoy my content. Now, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe if you enjoy my content, so that way you can stay updated as to when I post a new video. And once again, thank you all so much for the support, and I'll see you in part 2.